everyone, this is RedTechShoe, and I have another Battleborn character review for you. And in this episode, we are going to be looking at Orendi, my favorite character, and a lot of people's favorite characters. We're going to be looking at the Chaos Witch herself. We're going to be going over her lore, her skills, her basic Helix loadout that I have found to maximize her potential, and some battle tactics on how to just tear it up beast mode style on our opponents. So let's get right into her basic skill set, shall we? Her inherent skills, her first skill is Nullify. It propels her Orendi backwards a good distance, and it deals 67 damage, and that's really all it is. However, it has a unique property to it, and we'll get to that in a minute. However, the second skill is Shadowfire Pillar. This is Orendi's bread and butter skill. This is what's going to be used to deal the most amount of damage. She summons a pillar of rings that deal 300 damage on the target directly beneath it, and it can deal splash damage right around it. So if they're not directly in the center of the target, it'll deal some damage to them, and it'll even have a little bit of like an AoE damage, you know, outside the ring. So people even standing next to it, not in it, they can still take damage. So very useful there. And her ultimate ability is the Paradigm Shift. What she does is she creates a bunch of magical rings, but instead of it being in a vertical pillar, it's in a horizontal pillar going away from Orendi, right at her eye level, and it deals 500 damage to anything and everything in that path. It is a very great ability. It just instantly wipes out almost everyone's shield, with the exception of a few people, like, for instance, Shane and Orox. They have a starting base shield of like 600, but even still, it can deal a shit ton of damage in a quick amount of time. Now, I mentioned Nullify has an additional feature to it, and that is Orendi's Orendi's inherent ability is called Gnosis. When she activates her Nullify ability, it will reduce the cooldown of Shadowfire Pillar by 8 seconds. So in other words, you activate Shadowfire Pillar, it takes like, let's say, 20 seconds for its cooldown. If you activate Nullify, 8 seconds is removed off that cooldown, making it so that you get to Shadowfire Pillar even faster, and it allows you to continue, you know, just keep casting Shadowfire Pillar over and over and over and over. Now, there's no inherent ability for Orendi to reduce the cooldown of Nullify. That's something you have to go to her Helix tree and use an augment on that, and we'll get to her Helix loadout in a minute. So that's her inherent ability, Gnosis, reducing Shadowfire Pillar's cooldown by 8 seconds whenever she activates Nullify. Her basic R2 ability is Chaos Bolts. What it does is each one of her arms fires one energy bolt one at a time, so it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's standard, you know, it's not, the blasts aren't that fast, and they're not all that powerful, but it is nice. It's a constant stream. She never has to stop or reload. It's infinite. She can go on, she can keep firing till the cows come home, so she's able to constantly keep attacking. Now, her L2 ability is she'll fire all 4 arm blasts at once. So she'll just go bam, bam. She'll shoot a blast, and this is not really all that great. You'd think, okay, is it at the same speed? No, it's in my opinion, it's kind of pointless. However, there is an augment that allows it so that it gives those bolts tracking when they're fired all 4 at once. But overall, I've found that her secondary attack, where she fires all 4 at once, is relatively pointless, and it's very easy to miss. So I definitely don't recommend it. And that's really Orendi's basic skill loadout and her inherent abilities. And now we're going to move on to her lore. And Orendi is basically from a race of creatures that is known as the Veramorphs. The Veramorphs are an alien race. No one knows what they really are, what they look like, and that's because Veramorphs are very, very unique. They all look very differently. They share hardly any similarities between each other. Orendi just looks like a humanoid, but for all we know, that most Veramorphs could look, you know, reptilian or bird-like or some other type of animal we couldn't even associate with an appearance. So Orendi's appearance is very unique. They are able to evolve on their own according to however they see fit. So if they feel like, oh, we need to be able to swim more, okay, they can evolve and grow gills or fins on their hands or, you know, webbed feet. The entire Veramorph race is highly, highly adaptable. Slowly but surely, over the course of time, they can force their own, you know, evolution they can make their own evolutionary mutations. And it's very, very unique in that respect. I think they're the only race in the game, as far as I know, that is able to control their own evolutionary chain. And Orendi is no different. For one reason or another, Orendi evolved to develop 4 arms instead of 2 or 1 or none. So we have no idea what the Varamorphs inherently look like as they're born. But we all know that Varamorphs evolve and they share almost no similarities. However, they do share 3 similarities. They have an alternating light and dark skin color. As you can tell by looking at Orendi, she's mostly dark-skinned with a few white splotches on her arms, and her face is mostly white as well. Other Varamorph traits they share is they seem to have wiry dark hair. And the last thing that they possess is a complete and utter lack of respect for any form of order or authority. And that is made evident in the Essence of Chaos lore piece that you unlock in Orendi. It's an audio log of pretty much a court or trial hearing of Orendi after she's brought in, because she's not very nice, let's just say. She's kind of a loose cannon. And what happens in the audio log of her court hearing is that as she's having her sentences and her charges read out, she's just destroying the courtroom. She's just blasting shit left and right. People are running, screaming. And the judge is just racking up the charges, more and more vandalism, destruction and stuff like that. And Orendi just could not give less of a shit about, order or laws or anything like that. She has no respect for authority. It's amazing that she's actually a part of a faction. But for whatever reason, she seems to respect Reyna, who is the unofficial leader of the Rogue faction. She respects her enough to kind of listen to her. But at the same time, I think Reyna completely understands just how dangerous Orendi is, and Reyna probably has to keep a very short leash on Orendi. But Orendi is definitely a dangerous, dangerous individual. She's a loose cannon. Highly violent, prone to just random acts of whatever she doesn't think things through. If something pops into her head, she's just gonna go fucking do it. She doesn't care about the consequences or whatever. And that's really all I have to cover for Orendi, is that she's part of the Varamorphic race. That race can change its own, can evolve on its own. However, these individuals see fit, according to each his or her own, and they're completely incapable of showing any respect for authority. That's pretty much all there is to know about Orendi. So now that we're done with Orendi's skill set and her lore, we're going to go look into her Helix tree loadout, and we're going to show you the basic, I'm going to show you my basic loadout for Orendi to maximize her potential in combat. Alright, so here we are with my Helix loadout for Orendi. It's actually going to be very similar to the beta, however there are a few changes. But first off, we're going to go with Fire Walk with me right off the bat. I prefer this one. Shadowfire Pillar, revealing cloaked enemies, isn't all that impressive. Most enemies are probably running from you anyway, and since that's the objective with Orendi, is to make people retreat or kill them, preferably we want to kill them, but they're probably going to be running away. So odds are we don't want them to. We don't care about if they're invisible or not. So I prefer Fire Walk with me. For level 2, I go with I Hate Your Pretty Eyes. I'd rather blind them for 1 second than push them. Blinding them for 1 second can give you just enough time to get away, or just enough time to kill them, by repositioning yourself. And I've seen people literally spin in a circle thinking I went one way when I went the other, and then they spend like another 2 seconds reorienting themselves, and that all the while I'm just continually hitting them, where pushing them back doesn't do much of anything unless you just want to get increased distance. So Dismissed is a defensive tactic. I Hate Your Pretty Eyes, for me, is more of an offensive tactic, and we're going with offense here with Orendi. So on level 3, I go with the Oh, That Reminds Me. I prefer to have Orendi's shields recharging, since, Let's Bounce is okay. Mind Bullet's not all that great. I prefer just to use the Oh, That Reminds Me. I use her Nullify as a defensive and offensive technique, and this is perfect for that, recharging my overshield. For this one, we're going to go with Encore. We're going to attack with multiple Shadowfire Pillars. I prefer that just because I'm constantly casting it, and if you are trying to get that one piece of lore, where you have to do Shadowfire Pillar 50 times in 10 games, Encore is the way to go because you're casting a second Shadowfire Pillar. Yes, it does half damage, but it just stacks up. You can cast one and then immediately cast the other right next to it. If you're trying to lead opponents or lead AI, little bots, little ads, as they're walking along a certain path in either Meltdown or Incursion, either way, it's just, Encore is just too good. Now for this one is actually up to you. Renaissance, Prognostication, or Prognosticombo, either one is good. I bounce back and forth between Renaissance and Prognosticombo. I don't really need to worry about Prognostication. I've already got it good enough, especially since there's another perk down here later on. But right off the bat, for this one, I prefer, you can just bounce back and forth between Renaissance and Prognosticombo. It's up to you. This one, I prefer Shadow Fury over Nihilism, since Shadowfire Pillar is going to be our bread and butter. It's going to be our main method of dealing damage, and it's going to be the one we're spamming the most. We obviously want it to do the most amount of damage. Now this one, I prefer Force of Will. I just want, since we're spamming Shadowfire Pillars, we want to do as much damage as possible. Essence Theft is not too bad. It's not a terrible augment, but I prefer Force of Will just to deal as much damage as possible, and it's just too good. I mean, Orendi deals a fair amount of damage with her skills, so we're just gonna play to that strength and keep playing to that strength. I prefer, for this one, for level 8, Rapid Deterioration. Decrease Nullify's cooldown time. Make it so that we use Nullify more often, which allows us to, decrease the cooldown for Shadowfire Pillar, allowing us to use that more often. So Nullify's cooldown time being reduced by 20% is worth it, in my opinion. And it's not going to be all that powerful, so there's no reason to go for the 60% shield penetration, in my opinion. Alright, now for this one, for Shadowfire, I prefer Shadowfire Storm, just so that I can, once again, spam it more often. Which is one of the reasons why I chose not to use Prognostication here. It's because it allows us to, we essentially are being able to do it here. We're decreasing Shadowfire Pillar's cooldown, so we don't need to add add a further augment to Gnosis to decrease the Shadowfire Pillar cooldown. All we have to do is just, use it on a different thing while we use level 9 on Shadowfire Storm. That is going to decrease our cooldown time for Shadowfire Pillar once again. Chaotic Reach, not too bad. I don't really like still hating your shields all that much. And last but not least, Pillar Storm or Thought Rejection. Either one is fine, either one is good. I don't care which one, it's up to you. Some people like Reign of Chaos, but we've already got enough of that. We've already got enough Shadowfire Pillar cooldowns anyway. We're good on that. So I'd rather go for an augment that allows us to essentially gain a further advantage. Plus, there's not a guarantee every time that you activate Paradigm Shift, you're waiting for Shadowfire Pillar to cool down on its own. It could already be active, and at that point, Reign of Chaos is bonus, that it grants us is worthless. So I prefer Thought Rejection or Pillar Storm. And that's really it for my loadout, my Helix loadout for Orendi. Alright, so now it's time to go over the last part of this video, which is the battle tactics. And if I had to sum up Orendi with one term, with a special title or a name to describe how to use her effectively, it would be Ambush Predator. That is what Orendi does. As you see right here, I just come up behind enemies, I ambush them. They're a little distracted. Now I know some people are like, well duh, if you're attacking an enemy that's not fighting back, that's not expecting you, if you come up behind them, you can obviously kill them. But Orendi excels at that. Orendi is great at dealing a shit ton of damage, so if they're already partially wounded, Orendi can come in and finish them off. Now I know it's kind of a dick move to be running around and stealing kills from your teammates, but I'm not gonna lie, Orendi is great at that. Orendi truly is an ambush predator. Orendi is not to be taken lightly. She can just spam the shit out of her Shadowfire Pillars, and she can, and then not only that, but as she calls in the Shadowfire Pillar, you can also combo it with Paradigm Shift. Before Shadowfire Pillar detonates, because it has like a 1.5 second delay, you can immediately start the hand gestures for Paradigm Shift. So come up behind an enemy that has no chance of seeing you and line up your Shadowfire Pillar, especially if you're using it like I did, where you can cast two, one right after the other, like right here, you know, where I cast two, bam, bam. And you can essentially not only wipe out whatever's in your way, but you can also use Paradigm Shift, you know, as the delay is going on. So, like I said, if you're, I'm sorry, I'm getting my tongue tied here. Blech. Shadowfire Pillar has a 1.5 second delay. So once you call in Shadowfire Pillar, before it hits your opponent and before they're alerted to your presence, you can already be in the process of casting Paradigm Shift. Which means that as soon as they turn around and they realize, oh shit, Orendi's right behind me, you're about to blast them and wipe out what little health they have left. So if you ambush someone, you can just go Shadowfire Pillar, Paradigm Shift. And at that point, most enemies, if they're not dead, they're damn near close. It takes someone with an insane amount of health like Atticus or Kelvin or Montana. It would take someone with insane levels of health to live through all that. And even still, I've sent Montanas running. I've sent enemies running left and right. I've defeated Galileas with Orendi by playing smart, by outplaying my opponent. She is not that great on her own. I need to be very clear. If you run out in the open, and you know you're out in the open, and then you encounter a Galilea, I would avoid that. I would avoid that confrontation because you're probably going to lose it. Orendi does not deal good all on her own, out in the open, one-on-one. Orendi is not the type of person, is not the type of player to thrive in those situations. She is best used when she strikes from the shadows, when your opponent doesn't see it. As you see here, I just take advantage of opportunistic situations. She is an opportunistic feeder, an ambush predator. I mean, think of it like this, in the animal kingdom that we have here on Earth, I mean, she's essentially a crocodile. And crocodiles are some of the most notorious, ambush predators there are, and yet no one wants to fuck with one. Very few animals in the animal kingdom would ever think of, fighting a full-grown crocodile. And that's essentially what Orendi is. Orendi is an ambush predator. She's master of, striking from the shadows and then retreating. So you cast Shadowfire Pillar, you cast Nullify, you cast Shadowfire Pillar again, hit them with Paradigm Shift, and then you can pull back. And as you're pulling back, you can essentially, use all your arms. As you see here, I'm not usually the one to lead the charge. I wait for teammates to lead the charge for me, and I follow right behind them. I follow suit, and then I just pick apart my teammates, and I choose my spots carefully. That is one of the most important things you can do with Orendi, is pick your spots wisely. If you're rushing and you're leading the pack, odds are Orendi's not going to do well, because her starting base health is, I think, only 830 or something. She's very, very weak right off the bat in terms of her starting health. So you definitely want to use better equipment with her. Now, when it comes to personal items, Orendi is rather flexible. I chose to go with running speed and base attack speed. So we're going to increase Orendi's basic running speed so that she can move in and out real quick. She can run in, attack, get away. Especially if you have something that increases running speed and movement speed. If she's got low health, like under 50% health, that is a very good idea, because Orendi does not want to die. Orendi does not do well in prolonged fights. She wants to finish the fight off as quickly as possible. And so you can do movement speed and or sprint speed. For the third one, I chose to go with attack speed, just so that when she deals when she attacks with all four of her arms one at a time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, she speeds it up the attack by a little bit, allowing her to throw more energy blasts downrange, allowing her to just keep up the pressure and constantly attack. You don't have to do that. You can use one for skill damage or attack damage. You can use either one. That skill damage is obviously not a bad idea. It's obviously a good idea, because you're going to be spamming Shadowfire Pillar like there's no tomorrow. So that's definitely an idea. That's definitely a good idea. I just chose to go with attack speed just because, I was just feeling I was riding that attack speed high after I was playing Galilea. Being able to constantly attack, repeat over and over and over, and just being able to, DPS my opponents faster than they could DPS me. That was an awesome feeling. And really, that's all I've got to say about Orendi. Her strengths is striking from the shadows, ambushing your opponents, and hitting them before they realize that you've got them in your sights. And her weaknesses, pretty much low health, not good in one-on-one battles out in the open. You should avoid those situations at all costs. Be smart, be careful, be a little aggressive when the timing is just right, and you should have fun with Orendi. You should be able to do good with Orendi. She's not gonna... I myself have not gotten like 30 kills with her or stuff like that. I've had a few games, I think, where I've gotten like, 18 kills, 19 kills, somewhere around there. But I can't recall any game where I got like into the mid-20s or even close to that. Orendi, for me, is more of a character where you're gonna get like 15 kills, around 15 kills and then 5 or fewer deaths. When you play Orendi carefully and correctly, you can pull off numbers like that with a good 2 to 3 to 1 kill-death ratio, and you can do good. You might be leading the team in damage, depending upon who else is on your team. Orendi is definitely a good candidate for one of the top damage dealers in the game, especially when you're spamming Shadowfire Pillar like I do. But Orendi is definitely a strong character. Her base is attack, her R2 and L2, those are definitely the weakest that she does. She's not good at that. So the last little piece of advice I have for you is that if you have all your skills on cooldown and Orendi is reduced to nothing but her basic R2 and L2 attacks, that is when you need to pull back and just wait for your skills to cool down, recover, retreat, go get some health. Orendi does not do well on her own with her base skill attacks, with her basic, energy blasts of R2 and L2. Her skills are where it's at. Her skills are what's going to be the main method of dealing damage, and those are the strengths that you need to play to when you're playing as Orendi. And that's going to do it for this gameplay. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to like, favorite, subscribe, comment down below. Look forward to more character reviews that I will be doing for Battleborn, and I will see you guys all later in my next video. This is RadTech Shoe signing off.